On September 10th, 2014, Caitlin Brassel and I had the opportunity to sit down and talk with Montclair State University's Associate Director of School of Communications and Media, Dr. Christine Amesiano.
I'm Christine Amesiano. I'm the Associate Director of the School of Communication and Media. I have been at Montclair for now 14 years. I started out as a faculty member in Communication Studies, and I have also served as the coordinator for the Fundamentals of Speech program at the university. This is the second largest program at the university. It's part of the general education program. We have one of my areas of interest, right, is instructional communication, right, and thinking about the teaching practices and how we connect with students and how we develop engaging environments for students, and also how we bring in technology, right, to facilitate learning and to encourage engagement, deep engagement. So I've taught during my time at Montclair, now 14 years, I believe I have taught 26 different courses, both on the undergraduate and graduate level. I have written curriculum, right? So the very programs that you're in, right? I mean, I've created curriculum, right, and a lot of courses, right? I mean, I've developed courses from scratch, and one of the things that I've done for a long time is to experiment. Really, sometimes I treat my class, I'm very experimental because I get bored, right? I mean, I can't do the same course twice the same way. Sure. I learn something from the experience and the feedback that I get from students, and then the whole landscape, right, in our discipline shifts so much, right? So I like to experiment. So I've done a lot of project-based work with students, and I mean, the best recognition you can get for your work is always in the classroom. Sure. It loops back to how do you do things like leadership, for instance, right? So teaching and learning is about being a leader who's not really leading, right? So anything, any skill set, any approach that's productive, right, and is inviting and sort of allows people to take ownership, sure, right, of what they're doing and feel like there's a true partnership, right? That kind of skill set can translate from a classroom, right, and the kind of environment you can create within a classroom to an organization, right? And how, so it's not about, the skill set is exactly the same. Or how do you develop communication channels, and how do you develop expectations, how do you develop policies, and how do you dialogue with people so that they participate in all of this? And how do you then coordinate all of this? And how, right? I mean, so it's all about project management. The skills are transferable completely. And I think it has to do with sort of a philosophical approach. Right? I mean, how do that's why I say communication as a discipline is at the heart of everything, right? Because it's about that philosophical approach of what is the relational aspect of what I'm doing, and how do I honor that? Mm-hmm. And then how do I find productive ways to allow people, to empower people, right? To exceed their own expectations, right? Because without being pushy, without being preachy, without sort of directing people and not giving them option, right? How do you do that? All that, these are organizational skills, right? So in a classization, right, because you have to be able to identify what are the needs, right? You have to be able to develop the resources and the materials, right, to allow people to get up to speed. You have to be able to sort of coordinate training that is targeted, right? You have to sort of get people to buy in, right? That there is value to what is taking place, right? And I think in today's economy especially, and in today's sort of work landscape and how it's shifting, one of the key things for us to understand is that reskilling ourselves is essential. Who can say, not a single person, every single week I'm going to learn a new program. Right? Every single week I'm going to hound for information about something that I've never heard of. You have to be willing to put in the effort now, right? Especially for the younger generation, right? I mean, you're not at it, right? I mean, why should I come work for you when I can go over here, and over here they're going to keep retooling me, mm-hmm, right, and offering me opportunities to expand my knowledge base, right, to become much more versatile, to learn new things, to take on new responsibilities. Right? So organizations need to take that responsibility very seriously. And so I think, in training and development in organizations is a very serious business, and it should be. How the whole world keeps moving in cycles of things. So we come together and then we break apart, and we come together and we break apart. We in our communication studies area, the graduate program used to be structured as concentrations. Right? So we used to have a concentration in speech communication, and a different concentration in organizational communication, and a different one in public relations. And as we all become spectators and witnesses and also agents in this world of change, right, we kept seeing that, it's so difficult to draw distinctions sometimes, and that we approached it as, I think we're doing a sort of a disservice to the next generation, right, of leaders if we don't offer the opportunity for people to really understand the bigger context. So public relations is no longer this little thing that's hidden within an organization, right? It's no longer these little boutique firms that, somebody calls up and says, I have an event, and will you do it? It's such an integral part of organizations and culture. Right? Similarly, organizations are getting much more complex. Right? So we're no longer functioning out of the basement, right? I mean, organizations are getting much more global. They're becoming much more mobile, much sort of almost headquarterless, if you want to look at it, right? I mean, where is an organization? It's everywhere and nowhere, right? So this distinction between the internal workings of an organization, the external workings of an organization, it's sort of an arbitrary distinction. It's there. No one says that if you want to specialize and if you have a stronger interest in organizational issues, then I think the program, the way we've designed it, would allow you to establish a base level, right, of knowledge and a comfort level in terms of, I understand how the two come together, right, and how they play off each other and how they're intertwined. And when something happens internally, it impacts how we present the organization externally. When something happens externally, the organization internally needs to respond to that and may have to restructure itself, right? It's no side, right? But to really understand how things are not discrete anymore, right? How, and not just that the world is interconnected, right? And all these functions that make organizations operational and keep them moving forward and keep them innovating and sort of reinventing themselves so that they're relevant to an economy. Right? So you got to understand all of that, but then you also have to put it in the perspective of who am I and what's going to be my career path and my narrative. And your narrative is in no way defined. It will be rewritten so many different times. Master's program can prepare you to think that way, right? To sort of operate in that way in your work environment, right? And to analyze things, right? And to look at things analytically, right? I mean, other people can go through the motions of an everyday routine and just go to work. You're the analytic thinker, right? I mean, you're the people who just look at an interaction in the workplace and you go, oh, wait a minute, right? Approach to studies is read, even things that you think, why am I reading this? If you approach things with an open mind, there's always something that is of huge value in there, a little nugget in everything, and you got to develop that mindset, right? Of everything has the potential to be interesting, and everything I can take things from this context, and the imagination to put them in a brand new context and do something with that bit of information. That's beautiful. Right? Engage. Right? Engage. The most productive experience for you, the most rewarding experience for you will not be to just be in a class, right? I mean, create dialogue, create conversation, ask the questions that you need to be asking. Accept the fact that you will never know what you need to know. I'm sorry, I don't know what I need to know, and it's very hard to accept that, and accept the fact that you need to put a lot of work to keep just up to date, sort of. Right, so we got to let go of some of the old sort of approaches, right? So I'm going to go in, I'm going to learn, and then I'm going to take everything, and it's lifelong learning, and it's a commitment, So make a commitment to get the most out of your program, and make a commitment to create, very nice relationships with people in the program, with your faculty. Make sure to be connecting with your faculty. Take advantage of what the university has to offer, right? Because there are a lot of resources. There's a lot of training that gets done on campus. So even if, you think, well, why do I need to know this? They do training for new technologies. There are public presentations all the time with interesting speakers, right? So be part of the university.